The boy's hands moved like water through my rose garden, and he was stealing something that made no sense at all. Not the roses. Not the blooms worth $300 each. He was stealing dead petals, fallen, withered, worthless. I am Caspian Aldridge, 34 years old, net worth $4.7 billion. I built an empire from nothing, crushed competitors without mercy, and never once doubted a single decision I ever made. But watching that child through my security monitor, watching his small fingers gather rotting petals like they were diamonds, I felt something crack inside my chest. Have you ever seen something so small, so insignificant, that it completely shattered your understanding of your own life? I thought I had everything figured out: the penthouse, the private jets, the respect of every powerful man in this city. I was about to discover I had been living a lie for 8 years. What I saw next on that boy's face would bring me to my knees. The security alert had pinged at 6:47 in the morning. I was already awake. I am always awake before the sun rises. Sleep has never come easy to men like me. Too many numbers running through my head. Too many deals waiting to close. Too many enemies waiting for a single moment of weakness. My study sits on the 3rd floor of the Aldridge estate. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Marble desk, imported from Italy. A view of the rose garden that my mother planted 30 years ago before cancer stole her from us. I keep those roses alive for her. 12 gardeners. Climate-controlled irrigation. Soil imported from France. Those roses are the only soft thing left in my life. So when the motion sensors triggered near the east wall, I did not call security immediately. I pulled up the camera feed myself, and there he was, a boy. 7 years old, maybe 8. Dirty clothes, holes in his shoes, hair that had not seen a comb in weeks. He moved with purpose, not the clumsy movements of a child playing where he should not be. This was practiced, deliberate. He had done this before. I leaned closer to the screen. He knelt beside my mother's prized Juliet roses, the ones that cost $15,000 per bush, the ones that collectors fly in from Dubai just to photograph. But he did not touch the blooms. His hands went straight to the ground, to the fallen petals, the dead ones, the ones my gardeners sweep up and throw away every single morning. He gathered them carefully, gently, like he was handling something precious. Then he placed them inside a plastic bag tucked into his shirt. I watched him do this for 3 minutes, moving from bush to bush, collecting only what had already died. My finger hovered over the security button. 1 press and 6 guards would descend on that garden in under 40 seconds. They would grab the boy, hold him, until police arrived. I would never have to think about him again, but I did not press it. Something held me back. I am not a sentimental man. Ask anyone who has ever sat across a negotiation table from me. Ask the 14 companies I have acquired and dismantled. Ask my ex-wife, who once told me my heart was made of the same cold steel as my skyscrapers. She was not wrong. So, why did I push back from my desk? Why did I walk down 3 flights of stairs, through the kitchen, and out the garden door? Why did I decide to handle this myself? I told myself it was curiosity, a billionaire's boredom, a puzzle to solve before my morning coffee. But that was a lie. The truth is, something in that boy's movements reminded me of someone. The way he crouched, the careful way his fingers worked, the tilt of his head when he examined each petal before deciding if it was worth keeping. I knew those movements. I just could not remember from where. Welcome back to Empire of Lies, and if you are new here, you are about to experience a story that will stay with you long after it ends. Before we go any deeper, drop a comment and tell me where you are watching from right now. Whether you are in New York, Lagos, London, Tokyo, or anywhere else in the world, I want to know where this story is reaching. And if you have not already, hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell, because trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. Now, let us continue. The morning air hit my face as I stepped outside. Cool, damp, the smell of roses everywhere. The boy did not see me at first. He was too focused on his task, too lost in whatever mission had brought him to my garden at dawn. I watched him from 20 feet away. He was thin, too thin, the kind of thin that comes from missed meals, not genetics. His clothes were clean but worn through at the elbows and knees. Someone was trying to take care of him, someone who did not have enough. He reached for another petal, and that is when I saw his wrist. A bruise, purple and yellow, the kind that wraps around like fingers. Someone had grabbed this child. Hard. My jaw tightened. I stepped forward, and a twig snapped under my shoe. The boy's head snapped up. For a moment, neither of us moved. His eyes went wide. Not with fear, with calculation. He was measuring the distance to the wall, figuring out if he could run. "Wait," I said. My voice came out softer than I intended. I never speak softly. In boardrooms, my voice is a weapon. But something about this child made me lower my guard. He did not run. He stood there, frozen, the plastic bag clutched against his chest like a shield. "I am not going to hurt you," I said. "I just want to know why." He stared at me. "Why the petals? You could take the roses. They are worth more than anything you could sell in a year, but you only take what is already dead. Why?" His chin lifted, defiant. "Because the dead ones do not hurt anyone when they go missing." I blinked. "My mother needs them," he continued. "For medicine. She boils them into tea. It helps with the pain." "What pain?" "She is sick. The doctors cost too much, but rose petal tea helps her sleep, and when she sleeps, she does not cry." I felt something twist in my stomach. "How long has she been sick?" "Since I was born." He said it matter-of-factly, like sickness was just another thing he had learned to accept. Like pain was as normal as breathing. "And your father?" Something flickered across his face. Something dark. "I do not have a father. I never did." That should have been my cue to send him on his way, to give him a handful of petals and forget this encounter ever happened. But I did not, because something about this boy pulled at me, something I could not name yet. "What is your name?" I asked. He hesitated, wariness returning to his eyes. "Why do you want to know?" "Because I would like to know who I am speaking with. It seems only fair since you are on my property." He considered this logic, found it acceptable. "Stellan," he said. "My name is Stellan Cordova." The world stopped. I am not speaking poetically. I mean, the world actually stopped. The birds went silent. The wind died. My heart forgot how to beat. Cordova. That name hit me like a physical blow to the chest, like someone had reached inside my ribcage and squeezed. Cordova was not a common name in our circles, but I knew it. I had whispered it in the dark. I had searched for it in databases and records. I had mourned it for 8 years. "Your mother," I said, and my voice sounded strange, distant, like it belonged to someone else. "Tell me about your mother." Stellan's expression hardened. The openness from moments ago vanished, replaced by something protective, fierce. "Why do you want to know about my mom?" "I'm just curious. You mentioned she makes crafts, that she has been sad. I would like to understand." "Lots of people say they knew my mom." His words came out sharp. "Practiced. She never wants to talk to them. She says people from her past only bring trouble." "From her past? What past? What trouble?" "I am not asking to talk to her," I said carefully. "I am just asking about her. That is all." He did not believe me. I could see it in his eyes. This child had learned not to trust adults who asked too many questions, but he answered anyway. "Her name is Evany. My mom's name is Evany. Now, I want you to put yourself in my shoes for a moment. You are standing in your garden, looking at a child who might be carrying your family's bloodline. His mother is the woman you lost 8 years ago. Your heart is pounding. Your mind is racing with questions you do not have answers to. What would you do next? Would you demand answers immediately? Would you call your lawyers and private investigators? Would you march to wherever this child lives and confront the woman who disappeared? Or would you stand there frozen, terrified of what this means? terrified that if you push too hard, you will lose them both all over again. Let me know in the comments what you would do. To understand what Ebony meant to me, you need to understand who I was before I met her. I was 24 years old, the youngest department head in the history of Aldridge Enterprises. Third generation, heir to a shipping empire that stretched across 4 continents. On paper, I had everything. In reality, I had nothing that mattered. My father died when I was 19, heart attack at his desk. The coroner said he was dead before his body hit the floor. My mother found him 3 hours later, cold and stiff, his hand still wrapped around a pen. She did not cry. Not once. Not at the funeral. Not in the months that followed. Instead, she gathered what remained of our family and announced that grief was a luxury we could not afford. The company needed leadership. The board was circling like vultures. Competitors smelled blood in the water. There was no time for tears. So I did not cry either. I buried whatever I felt in a coffin alongside my father and became what my mother needed me to become. Cold, calculating, controlled. My sister Celeste was different. She felt everything too deeply. She wanted to study art in Paris. She wanted to fall in love with someone who made her laugh. She wanted a life outside the golden prison of our family name. My mother crushed those dreams one by one. Celeste did not go to Paris. She married Harrison Whitmore, the son of our largest investor. A strategic alliance disguised as a wedding. She smiled in all the photographs, but her eyes were empty. I watched my sister sacrifice her happiness on the altar of family duty, and I knew my turn was coming. Her name was Philippa Hartwell, 23 years old, daughter of Douglas Hartwell, the media mogul whose television networks reached half the world. A merger between our families would create an empire that no competitor could touch. My mother arranged the dinner herself. "You will like her," she said, adjusting my tie in the mirror. "She is educated, refined. She understands how these things work. How these things work. Not love, not connection, not even basic attraction. These things. Arrangements, transactions, business deals wearing wedding rings. The restaurant was private, the kind of place where senators and CEOs conducted affairs without fear of cameras. Philippa arrived in a dress that cost more than most people earned in a year. She was beautiful. I will not pretend otherwise. Perfect bone structure, practiced smile, conversation calibrated to impress without intimidating. But there was nothing behind her eyes. She spoke about charity work like it was a branding exercise. She mentioned her summer home in the Hamptons 3 times in the first hour. She never once asked me a question that was not designed to assess my value. I was not a person to her. I was an asset. And she was not a person to me either. She was a contract waiting to be signed. A merger waiting to be finalized. We were 2 empty people going through motions that our families had choreographed long before we ever met. After dinner, my driver took her home. I sat in the back of my car, staring at the city lights, feeling nothing. No, that is not true. I felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left only the shell. The heating in my building failed that night. Some pipe burst somewhere. The details did not matter. What mattered was that my penthouse dropped to 40 degrees, and the repair crews would not arrive until morning. I could have gone to a hotel. I could have stayed with my mother. I could have done 100 different things that a man of my status should have done. Instead, I walked. I do not know why. The cold air felt good against my skin. The empty streets felt honest in a way that my life never did. I walked for 2 hours, and somehow I ended up outside a warming shelter on 47th Street. I had passed this building 1,000 times. I never noticed it before. Why would I? It served people who did not exist in my world. People without heated penthouses. People without drivers. People without options. But that night, I noticed. The doors were open. Warm light spilled onto the sidewalk. I could see people inside. Families, elderly men and women, a few children sleeping on cots. I should have kept walking. Instead, I went in. No one stopped me. No one asked who I was, or why someone in a $3,000 coat was stepping into a homeless shelter at midnight. They just made room. A woman handed me a cup of coffee without asking if I wanted one. A man nodded at me like I belonged there, like my presence was not strange at all. And then I saw her. She was standing at the coffee station, pouring cups with practiced efficiency. Dark hair pulled back from her face. No makeup. Clothes that were clean but worn. She was laughing at something another volunteer had said. That laugh cut through the room like sunlight through fog. I have attended galas where women wore diamonds, worth more than houses. I have sat across from actresses whose faces launched magazine covers. I have dated models whose beauty was their entire currency. None of them affected me the way this woman did. It was not her appearance, though she was striking in a way that expensive clothes and professional styling could never replicate. It was something else, something in the way she moved, the way she listened when people spoke to her, the way she touched an elderly woman's hand when she handed her a cup. She was present, fully, completely present in that moment. I had never seen anything like it. In my world, everyone was always performing, always calculating their next move, always aware of who was watching and what impression they needed to make. This woman was not performing for anyone. She looked up and caught me staring. I expected her to look away, to blush, to do any of the things women usually did when they caught the attention of someone like me. She did none of those things. Instead, she walked straight toward me. "You look lost," she said, "or confused. You have definitely wandered somewhere you did not mean to go." Her voice was warm but direct. No pretense, no attempt to impress. "I was just walking," I said. "The cold brought me here." The cold. She tilted her head, studying me with open curiosity. "Not the conscience?" "Excuse me? That coat costs more than most people in this room will earn in 6 months. Those shoes are Italian. The watch on your wrist could pay someone's rent for a year." She smiled, but it was not cruel. "Men like you do not wander into places like this by accident. Something brought you here." "How do you know what my coat costs?" I asked. "I do not." She shrugged. "But I know it costs too much." That should have offended me. It did not. "Everything about you costs too much," she continued. "I can tell by the way you are standing there, trying to figure out whether you should apologize for existing in this space, or act like you own it. And which should I do? Neither. Just drink your coffee. Be a person for 5 minutes. It will not kill you." She turned back to the coffee station. I should have left. I should have walked out those doors and returned to my cold penthouse and my empty life. Instead, I followed her. "I am Caspian," I said. "I know who you are." She did not turn around. "You do?" "Caspian Aldridge, youngest department head at Aldridge Enterprises. Your company's ships were all over the news last month when that cargo deal fell through. You lost $400 million in a single afternoon." I stared at her. "You follow shipping news?" "I follow economic news." Now she turned, coffee pot in hand. "Shipping affects supply chains affect prices affect whether the people in this room eat tomorrow. Everything is connected. Most rich people just do not bother to trace the threads." No one had ever spoken to me like this. Not my mother. Not my colleagues. Not any of the women my family paraded in front of me. "What is your name?" I asked. She studied me for a long moment, deciding something. "Ebony," she finally said. "My name is Ebony." We talked until 3 in the morning. I do not remember how it happened. One moment we were standing at the coffee station. The next we were sitting in plastic chairs in the corner, empty cups piling up between us. She told me about the shelter, how she had been volunteering there for 3 years, how some of the people who came through those doors just needed a warm place to sleep, while others needed something far more complicated. "Hope," she said. "That is the hardest thing to give. You can give someone food, blankets, a roof for the night. But hope, that requires something more. That requires seeing them, really seeing them. Most people do not want to do that." "Why not?" "Because if you see them, really see them, then you have to acknowledge that the system that keeps you comfortable is the same system that keeps them cold, and that is uncomfortable. I had never thought about it that way. I had never thought about a lot of things. Let me ask you this. Have you ever met someone who saw right through you? Someone who did not care about your title, your money, your family name? Someone who looked at you and saw the real person hiding underneath all the masks? If you have, you know exactly what I felt in that moment. You know that terrifying, exhilarating sensation of being truly known by a stranger. And if you have not, well, keep watching. Because this story might change how you see everything. That was the night I realized everything I thought I knew about my life was wrong. Everything my mother had taught me about value, about worth, about who deserved my attention. All of it crumbled in the presence of a woman pouring coffee in a homeless shelter. I returned to the shelter the next night. And the night after that, and the night after that. For 2 weeks, I showed up at the same time, wearing different clothes each night, progressively less expensive, as if I was trying to blend in. As if someone like me could ever blend into a world like this. Ebony noticed. "The coat is still too nice," she said on the 4th night. "But at least you are trying." I was trying, harder than I had ever tried for anything in my life. Not because I wanted something from her, not because I was running some calculated strategy to win her over. I came back because being near her made me feel like a real person for the first time in years. She did not know my mother. She did not care about board meetings or merger negotiations. She did not look at me and see the Aldridge name, the shipping empire, the billions of dollars. She looked at me and saw a man who was searching for something he could not name. On the 14th night, she finally asked, "Why do you keep coming back?" We were washing dishes together in the tiny kitchen behind the main hall. My hands were raw from the hot water. My back ached from standing for hours. I had never been happier. "Because this is the only place where I can breathe," I said. She stopped washing, turned to look at me. "What does that mean?" "It means everywhere else in my life I am performing. I am being what someone else needs me to be. But here with you, I am just—" I struggled to find the right word. "Here." She did not respond right away. Instead, she finished washing the last dish, dried her hands on a towel, and walked outside to the small alley behind the shelter. I followed. The night air was cold. She did not seem to notice. "My mother died when I was 11, she said. I did not speak. I sensed she needed to say this, needed me to listen without interrupting. Cancer, the kind that spreads fast. 1 month she was complaining about stomach pain, the next month she was gone. Ebony leaned against the brick wall, her eyes fixed on something I could not see. We did not have insurance. My father worked construction, but the company he worked for classified everyone as independent contractors. No benefits, no coverage, nothing. "I am sorry." "Do not be sorry. Just listen." I listened. The hospital bills destroyed us. Everything we had went to trying to save her, and it was not enough. She died anyway, and we were left with nothing. Her voice was steady, matter of fact, like she had told this story so many times that the pain had been worn smooth. But I could see it in her eyes. The wound that never fully healed. My father tried, he really did. Construction when he could find it, gas station work when he could not. Eventually nothing at all. He started drinking, not to escape, I think, just to survive. The guilt ate him alive. Where is he now? I do not know. He disappeared 3 years ago. Sometimes I look for him in shelters like this one. Sometimes I am afraid I will find him. 3 days later, I came back with a white rose. I do not know why I chose white. Maybe because it felt pure. Maybe because everything else in my life was so complicated, so layered with expectation and obligation, that I needed something simple, a white rose, a clear message. She was restocking supplies when I walked in. Her back was to me, but she knew I was there. "You came back," she said without turning around. I could not stay away. Now she turned. Her eyes dropped to the rose in my hand. "That is from your garden, is it not? The famous Aldridge roses. I have read about them. Your mother planted them decades ago." "How do you know that?" "I told you. I follow the news, including the society pages, when I am bored enough." She smiled. and something inside me cracked open. Those roses cost more than I make in a month. This one cost me nothing. It grew in my garden. I cut it myself. Why? Because I wanted to give you something beautiful, and I did not want it to come from money. I wanted it to come from me. She took the rose, lifted it to her nose, breathed deeply. Dinner, she said. What? You were going to ask me to dinner. I can see it in your face. The answer is yes. Our first date was at a restaurant no one from my world would ever find. A tiny Vietnamese place in a neighborhood I had never visited. Plastic chairs, paper menus, the kind of food that costs $12 and tastes better than anything you could buy for $1,200. Ebony chose it deliberately. If we are going to do this, she said, we need to do it somewhere real, somewhere your name means nothing. I agreed. I told myself it was romantic. Two people creating their own world, separate from the expectations and obligations that defined my life. But that was a lie I told myself to sleep at night. The truth was simpler, uglier. I was hiding her. 4 months we spent in secret. 4 months of restaurants in obscure neighborhoods, weekend trips to towns no one had ever heard of. Hotel rooms booked under fake names. I told her it was strategy, that I needed time to prepare my family, that introducing her too soon would create unnecessary conflict. She accepted these explanations with a grace she should never have been asked to show. I understand, she said every time I apologized for another cancelled plan, another rescheduled meeting, another reason we could not be seen together in public. I know your world is complicated. Her world was complicated too. But she never asked me to hide from it. She introduced me to her friends within the first month. She brought me to the coffee shop where she worked, introduced me to her co-workers as her boyfriend. She took me to the vintage store, let me help sort through donations, treated me like someone she was proud to know. I gave her none of that in return. On our 4-month anniversary, I rented a cabin 3 hours outside the city. No one knew where we were going. No one could find us. For one weekend, we existed only for each other. The cabin was small. 1 bedroom, a fireplace, a porch overlooking a lake so still it looked like glass. Nothing fancy. Nothing that cost too much. Ebony loved it. This is what I wanted, she said, standing on the porch that first evening. Not the expensive restaurants you try to take me to, not the gifts you keep buying. Just this, just us, just quiet. We cooked dinner together. I burned the pasta. She laughed so hard she had to sit down. You really cannot do anything without staff, can you? I am learning, I said. Slowly. Very slowly. That night, by the fire, she told me things she had never told anyone. About the months after her mother died, how she would lie awake at night, listening to her father cry in the next room. How she learned to cook at 11 because someone had to, and her father could barely get out of bed. About the shame she carried when classmates asked about her family. The lies she told because the truth felt too heavy. The armor she built around herself, so no one could see how broken she really was inside. You are not broken, I said. Everyone is broken, Caspian. The difference is whether you let the broken pieces cut you, or you learn to hold them carefully. Later that night, we made love for the first time. It was not perfect. It was awkward in places, tender in others, real in a way nothing in my life had ever been real. Afterward, she lay with her head on my chest, tracing patterns on my skin with her fingertips. Can I tell you something? She asked. Anything. I think this might be the best thing that has ever happened to me. Her voice was barely a whisper. And that scares me more than anything else could. I pulled her closer. Why does it scare you? Because good things do not last for people like me. They come and they feel wonderful and then they disappear. My mother, my father, every bit of stability I ever had. She lifted her head to look at me. I keep waiting for you to disappear too. I am not going anywhere. You say that now, but you do not know what your family will do when they find out about us. You do not know how hard they will fight to separate us. I know exactly how hard they will fight, and I do not care. She studied my face for a long moment, searching for something, a lie. a weakness, a crack in my certainty. "I want to believe you," she said finally. "I want to believe this is real, that you will choose me when choosing me costs everything." "I will. Promise me." I took her face in my hands, looked directly into her eyes. "I promise. When the time comes, I will choose you. I will always choose you." It was the most sincere promise I had ever made. It was also the promise I would break in the worst possible way. 5 months into our relationship, I ran out of excuses. Ebony never pressured me. She never demanded to meet my family. But I could see the question in her eyes every time I mentioned my mother, my sister, the world I came from. She wanted to know where she fit. And I wanted to show her that she belonged. So I made the call I had been avoiding for months. "I want to bring someone to dinner," I told my mother. "Someone important to me." Silence on the other end of the line, long enough that I thought she had hung up. "Someone important," she repeated. "I assume this is not about business." "No, this is personal." Another pause. "Very well. Friday evening, 8 o'clock, do not be late." She did not ask questions. She did not demand details. That should have been my first warning. Marguerite Aldridge never walked into any situation unprepared. If she was not asking questions, it was because she already had the answers. I told Ebony that night, "She wants to meet me? I want you to meet her. There is a difference." Ebony nodded slowly, processing. I could see the fear she was trying to hide, the same fear she had confessed in the cabin. "What should I wear? What should I say? Is there anything I need to know about?" "Just be yourself," I said. "She will love you because I love you." I actually believed that. I was so naive. The dining room in my mother's house could seat 30 people. She chose to seat us at the end of the table, close together, intimate, a setting designed for conversation, a setting designed for interrogation. Ebony wore a simple black dress, not expensive, but elegant. She had done her hair herself, applied her own makeup. She looked beautiful in a way that money could never buy. My mother noticed. "What a lovely dress," Marguerite said as we sat down. "Where is it from?" "A consignment shop in Capitol Hill," Ebony replied. "I work there on weekends." How resourceful. My mother's smile did not reach her eyes. I admire that, making do with what one has. The first course arrived. Soup, French onion, the kind of thing my mother served when she wanted to appear approachable. "Tell me about your family, dear. Where did they summer?" Ebony's spoon paused halfway to her mouth. "Summer?" "Yes. Where did your family vacation? The Hamptons, Martha's Vineyard. We used to go to Monaco when Caspian was young." "We did not really vacation," Ebony said carefully. "My father worked construction. Summers were his busy season." "Oh." My mother set down her spoon. "How interesting. And your mother?" "She passed when I was 11. How tragic. Truly tragic." The words sounded right, but the tone was wrong. Clinical, distant. "And what did she do before she passed?" "She was a secretary at a law firm downtown." "How lovely. Secretarial work is so undervalued these days." Every question was a weapon. I watched my mother deploy them with surgical precision, each one designed to expose something, each one calculated to remind Ebony exactly how far beneath us she was. "Which university did you attend?" "Community college first, then 2 years at Washington State before I had to—" "Oh, just community college and 2 years at State. What an accomplishment given your circumstances." "What do your people do now? You mentioned your father was in construction." "He is not able to work anymore. Health issues." "Disabled, and your mother deceased. How tragic." My mother reached for her wine. "It must be so difficult, being alone in the world like that, no family to fall back on, no safety net." Under the table, I felt Ebony's hand trembling. I should have stopped it. I should have stood up, taken Ebony's hand, and walked out of that dining room forever. But I sat there, frozen, watching the woman I loved be dismantled piece by piece, while I did nothing. "And what are your intentions with my son?" My mother leaned forward. Surely you understand that his future is not entirely his own. He has responsibilities, expectations, a legacy to maintain. I understand that Caspian has to make his own choices. Choices. My mother smiled. Yes, choices. And some choices have consequences that cannot be undone. Evany set down her fork. I think I should go, she said quietly. I reached for her hand. Evany, wait. No. She pulled away. I think I should go. I followed her outside. The night air was cold. A wind had picked up while we were inside, carrying the scent of rain. Evany walked quickly, her heels clicking against the stone pathway that led to where her car was parked. Evany, please, stop. She stopped, but she did not turn around. I am so sorry, I said. I had no idea she would. Yes, you did. Her voice was barely above a whisper. You knew exactly what she was capable of. That is why you hid me for 5 months. I had no answer for that, because she was right. I sat there, she continued, still not facing me, and I listened to that woman tear apart everything I am, everything I come from, my dead mother, my broken father, my unfinished education. She made me feel like I was nothing. You are not nothing. You are everything to me. Now she turned, and I saw the tears. Evany never cried. In all our months together, through every story she told about her past, through every painful memory she shared, I had never seen her cry. But she was crying now. I cannot spend my life being looked at the way your mother looked at me tonight, she said. I cannot sit through dinners where I am reminded that I will never be enough, that my blood is not blue enough, my family is not connected enough, my bank account is not full enough. Then I will leave. The company, the inheritance, the name, none of it matters if I do not have you. You cannot give up everything for me. I will not let you. Why not? Because you will regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not next year, but someday you will look at me and see everything you lost, and I cannot live with being the reason for that. I stepped closer, took her face in my hands, wiped the tears from her cheeks with my thumbs. I have spent my entire life doing what I was supposed to do, being who I was supposed to be, chasing goals that were handed to me before I was old enough to know what I actually wanted. Caspian, you are the first thing I have ever chosen for myself, the first thing that is mine, and I am not letting you go because my mother is cruel and my world is broken. I dropped to one knee, right there, in the driveway. In the cold, with no ring and no plan, and nothing but desperation driving me forward. Then marry me, I said. Let me prove you are more important than any of this. She stared at me, tears still streaming down her face. You are insane. Probably. Is that a yes? Yes, she whispered. Yes, you impossible man. Yes. I need to ask you something real right now. Have you ever hidden someone you loved because you were scared of what others would think? Have you ever asked someone to be your secret because facing the truth felt too hard? Or maybe you have been the one hidden, waiting for someone to be brave enough to claim you publicly. If you have been on either side of this, you know the pain I am describing. Drop a comment and tell me which side you are on. 2 weeks later, everything changed again. I came home from work to find Evany sitting on the floor of our small apartment. Not on the couch, not in a chair, on the floor, her back against the wall, her knees pulled up to her chest. She was holding something in her hands, something small, white, plastic. Evany, what is wrong? She looked up at me. Her eyes were red. She had been crying again, the second time I had ever seen tears on her face. I need to tell you something, she said, and I need you to let me finish before you say anything. Can you do that? I nodded. Sat down across from her on the floor. I am pregnant. The words landed between us like a physical thing. Heavy, solid, real. I found out this morning. I took 3 tests because I did not believe the first 2. They were all positive. She held up the plastic stick. This is the 3rd one. I stared at it, at the 2 pink lines that meant our lives were about to change forever. I am not telling you this because I want something from you, she continued. I am keeping it no matter what, even if you do not want. I crossed the room before she could finish. I pulled her to her feet, wrapped my arms around her, and held her so tight I thought we might fuse into one person. "Want this?" I said into her hair. "Ebony, I have wanted this since the moment I saw you." She pulled back to look at my face. "You are not upset." "Upset? I am—" I struggled to find the right word. None of them seemed big enough. "I am overwhelmed. I am terrified. I am happier than I have ever been in my entire life." "But your family, your mother, the company, this changes everything." "Good." I cupped her face in my hands. I wanted everything to change. Now it has to. We decided that night. We would tell my family together. United front. No more hiding. No more secrets. Whatever they threw at us, we would face it side by side. "Are you sure?" Ebony asked. "Once we tell them, there is no going back. I do not want to go back. I want to go forward. With you. With our child." She smiled then. A real smile. The kind I had not seen since before that dinner with my mother. "Our child," she repeated. "That sounds strange. Good strange, but strange. Get used to it. You are going to be hearing it for the rest of your life." We fell asleep that night tangled together, her hand resting on her stomach, my hand covering hers. For the first time in months, I felt peace. Real peace. The kind that comes from knowing exactly where you belong. The next 6 months were the happiest of my life. We moved into a small apartment in Belltown. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen so tiny we could not both stand in it at the same time. It was perfect. No staff, no drivers, no housekeepers or personal assistants or anyone to do the things I had never learned to do for myself. Ebony taught me everything. She taught me to grocery shop. Not the way I used to do it, walking through the expensive organic market, grabbing whatever looked good without checking prices. She taught me to compare costs per ounce, to buy seasonal produce because it was cheaper, to plan meals around what was on sale. She taught me to do laundry. I ruined 3 of her favorite shirts before I finally understood that not everything goes in the dryer. She taught me to take public transportation. The buses confused me at first. The subway was easier. I learned the routes, the schedules, the unwritten rules of how to stand and where to sit. She taught me to exist in public parks, to sit on a bench with a book and not feel anxious, to watch children play without checking my phone, to be present in a moment without calculating what I should be doing instead. "You are becoming a real person," she teased one evening as we walked home from the grocery store, bags in our hands. "I was a real person before." "You were a rich person before. That is not the same thing." And speaking of comments, I am still seeing them rolling in. I see you watching from Brazil, from the Philippines, from Canada, from Ghana, from the UK. Keep them coming. Let me know where you are tuning in from. Hit that like button if you understand the fear of loving someone your world will not accept. Now back to the story, because what happens next changed everything. For 6 months, I thought we had won. We had escaped my mother's control. We were building something beautiful on our own terms. I did not know the real war had not even begun. I did not know she was watching, waiting, planning something far worse than disapproval. My mother discovered the pregnancy 3 weeks before Ebony's due date. I do not know how she found out. Maybe she had been watching us all along. Maybe someone at the doctor's office recognized the Aldridge name on the insurance forms. Maybe she simply knew her son well enough to sense when something fundamental had shifted. The call came on a Tuesday morning. "We need to discuss your situation," she said. No greeting, no pretense of maternal concern. "What situation?" "Do not insult my intelligence, Caspian. I know about the woman. I know about the child she claims to carry." Claims to carry. As if Ebony's swollen belly was somehow a deception. As if the life growing inside her was a lie she had constructed. "There is nothing to discuss," I said. "Ebony is having my child. We are getting married. You can either accept that or what?" Her voice was ice. "You will walk away from everything, from the company your grandfather built, from the legacy 3 generations created, for a woman who saw an opportunity and took it. She is not." I have had her investigated, Caspian. Every detail of her pathetic little life, the dead mother, the alcoholic father, the unfinished education, the 3 jobs that barely keep her alive. She targeted you. She saw weakness and exploited it. You are wrong. Am I? A woman with nothing suddenly finds herself pregnant by one of the wealthiest men in the city. How convenient. How perfectly timed. I asked her to marry me before she was pregnant. Of course you did. That was part of her plan. Make you think it was your idea. Make you believe you were choosing freely. My mother's laugh was cold, sharp. You are so naive, my son, so desperate for something real that you cannot see the con happening right in front of you. I hung up on her. It was the first time in my life I had ever done that. But she was not finished. The investigators appeared within days, following Ebony to her doctor appointments, photographing her at the grocery store, asking questions at the coffee shop where she worked. Someone has been calling my manager, Ebony told me one night, asking about my work history, my character, whether I have ever been in trouble. My mother. I figured. She sat down heavily, one hand on her belly. She is trying to find something to use against me. There is nothing to find. Everyone has something, Caspian. Some mistake, some moment of desperation, some choice they wish they could take back. She looked at me with tired eyes. Your mother will find mine, or she will create it. She was right. The first article appeared a week later. Gold digger targets Aldridge heir. The headline was accompanied by a photo of Ebony entering her apartment building. They had somehow made her look calculating, predatory. The angle of the shot, the moment they chose, everything designed to make her appear suspicious. The article was full of anonymous sources and people familiar with the situation. They claimed Ebony had researched me before we ever met, that she had deliberately positioned herself at the warming shelter knowing I would appear, that she had a history of targeting wealthy men. None of it was true, but truth does not matter when the lie is loud enough. More articles followed, each one worse than the last. The woman who trapped an Aldridge. From homeless shelter to penthouse, one woman's calculated climb. Sources say pregnancy may be fabricated. That last one included doctored medical documents suggesting Ebony had lied about her pregnancy timeline, that she had been pregnant before we met, that the child was not mine. I knew they were fake. The dates did not match. The doctor's name was wrong. The entire thing was fabricated, but my mother had paid good money for those fabrications, and people believed what they wanted to believe. Ebony stopped leaving the apartment. I cannot do it, she said, standing at the window, watching the photographers gathered below. Every time I step outside, they follow me. They shout things, horrible things. I will fix this. How? Your mother owns half the media in this city through her connections. She can make them print anything. Then we will leave. We will go somewhere she cannot reach us. There is nowhere she cannot reach us, Caspian. You know that. She was right about that, too. My mother's influence extended far beyond Seattle, beyond the state. She had connections in every major city, favors owed by people in positions of power. We were trapped, and Ebony knew it. The witness came forward on a Thursday. Her name was Patricia Wells. She claimed to be Ebony's former roommate. She had never existed before that day, but suddenly she had a full history. Social media accounts dating back years, employment records, even photographs that had been expertly doctored to place her in Ebony's past. Patricia told the press that Ebony had bragged about her plan. She said she was going to find a rich man and get pregnant, Patricia claimed in a televised interview. She had a whole strategy. She researched the wealthiest families in Seattle. She knew their routines, their weaknesses. Caspian Aldridge was her primary target. The interviewer leaned forward, perfectly rehearsed concern on her face. And you lived with her during this time? For 6 months, I watched her prepare. She studied him, downloaded articles about his company, even practiced conversations in the mirror. Why are you coming forward now? Because I cannot stand by and watch her destroy a good man. He deserves to know the truth. The truth. The word burned in my chest as I watched that interview, because I knew the actual truth. I knew Patricia Wells had never existed until my mother created her. I knew those photographs were fabricated, those social media accounts backdated, that entire history constructed from nothing. But I could not prove it, not without resources I no longer had access to. My mother had been careful. She had frozen my accounts for my own protection. She had removed my access to company resources until this situation is resolved. I was as powerless as Evany had always been. More witnesses followed. A man who claimed Evany had tried the same scheme with him 2 years earlier. A woman who said she had seen Evany at high society events, hunting for targets. A doctor who suggested, without explicitly stating, that Evany's pregnancy timeline was suspicious. All lies. All paid for by my mother. All believed by a public hungry for scandal. The confrontation with Evany came on a Friday night. She was standing in the kitchen when I got home, holding a newspaper. Her face was pale. Her hands shook. "They are saying I am not even pregnant," she said. "That I am wearing a prosthetic. That this is all an elaborate con." She lifted her shirt, revealing her swollen belly. Our child moved beneath her skin, visible proof of the life we had created. How can they say this is fake? How can they look at me and say this is not real? Because my mother pays them to say it. Then make her stop. I cannot. She has cut me off from everything. I have no access to funds, no access to lawyers, no access to the connections that could fight this. Then we are finished. Her voice was hollow, defeated. She wins. No, we leave, tonight, we disappear. And go where? With what money? How do we raise a child when your mother will hunt us wherever we go? I pulled her into my arms, felt her trembling against my chest. I will figure it out, I promise. But for the first time since I had made her a promise, I did not believe it myself. The conversation that ended everything happened 3 days later. Evany was sitting on the couch when I came home, not crying, not angry, just empty. "I am leaving," she said. "What?" "I am leaving tonight, and you are not coming with me." "Evany, no. We can fight this. We can—" "There is no fighting this, Caspian. Your mother has unlimited resources, unlimited influence. She will destroy me completely before she lets me have you. I do not care what she does." "But I do." She stood up, her hand on her belly. "I care what she does to our child. What kind of life will this baby have with your mother's poison following everywhere? What kind of childhood, always being called the bastard who tried to steal the Aldridge fortune? I will protect. You cannot even protect me. How will you protect a child?" The words hit like a physical blow, because they were true. I had failed to protect her, failed to stop my mother's campaign, failed to be the man she needed. "Then I will go with you," I said desperately. "Wherever you run, I will follow." "No." Her voice was firm, final. "You will stay here. You will return to your family. You will tell them I deceived you, that you discovered the truth, that you are grateful to be free of me. I will never—" "You will, because if you do not, your mother will never stop hunting me. The only way I can disappear is if she believes she has won." I should have fought harder. I should have refused her plan, should have insisted we face my mother together, should have proven that my love was stronger than my fear. But I was weak, and in my weakness, I let doubt creep in. Not doubt about Evany, never about her, but doubt about myself, about whether I was strong enough to protect her and our child from my mother's endless resources. What if she is right? My mother said during one of her visits to the apartment, "What if this woman has played you perfectly? What if the child is not even yours? Get out! I am trying to protect you, Caspian. That is all I have ever done. You are trying to control me. Is there a difference?" She stood at the window, looking down at the city she influenced so completely. Control and protection are the same thing when someone you love is making a terrible mistake. Loving Evany is not a mistake. Time will tell. She turned to face me. "She's going to run, you know. Women like her always do when things get difficult, and when she does, when she abandons you, remember that I tried to warn you." She left without another word. But the seed was planted. That night, I came home to find Evany packing. Not dramatically, not obviously, just small things disappearing into a bag she thought I would not notice. "You are really going to leave?" I said. She froze, then continued packing. "I told you I was." I hoped you would change your mind." "Why would I change my mind? What has gotten better? What has changed except your mother's lies getting louder?" "I am trying to fix this." "No, you are waiting for it to fix itself." She turned to face me, and the exhaustion in her eyes broke my heart. "You keep saying you will figure it out, you will protect us, you will make it stop, but you have done nothing. That is not fair." "Is it not?" She laughed, bitter and broken. "Name one concrete thing you have done to stop your mother, one action you have taken that was not just words." I could not, because she was right. I had made promises. I had made declarations, but I had not acted. I had not used what power I still had to fight back. "Your silence is my answer," she said. "That was when I made the mistake that would haunt me for 8 years. Maybe you should go," I said. "Just for a while, just until I can get control of the situation." She stared at me. "You want me to go?" "Not want, but maybe it is safer. Maybe if you are not here, my mother will stop. Maybe I can negotiate with her better if I am gone." Her voice was flat, dead. "If the problem is removed, you are not a problem." "No? Then what am I, Caspian? Because I am clearly not worth fighting for." "That is not—" "Get out." "Ebony, get out." I left. I walked the streets for hours, trying to understand what had just happened, trying to figure out how to fix what I had just broken. When I returned to the apartment at dawn, she was gone. No note, no forwarding address, no trace of her except the white rose I had given her that first night, left dead and dried on the kitchen counter. I searched for her for 6 months, every resource I could access, every favor I could call in, every investigator I could hire with the limited funds I had managed to hide from my mother. Nothing. She had vanished as completely as if she had never existed. And somewhere, growing inside her, was my child. A child I would not meet for 8 more years. A child who would one day stand in my garden, stealing rose petals, wearing my family's mark on his skin. My mother appeared at the apartment 1 week after Ebony disappeared. "She is gone then," she said. "Not a question. She already knew. You won. I protected you. There is a difference." "There is no difference, not to you." She sat down on the couch where Ebony used to sit. I wanted to scream at her to get up, to never touch anything that Ebony had touched, but I was too empty to fight. "Come home," my mother said. "Return to the company. Resume your place. We will never speak of this unfortunate episode again. And if I refuse, then you will sit here in this pathetic apartment, waiting for a woman who is never coming back, while your inheritance and your future dissolve." She stood, brushing invisible dust from her skirt. "She is not coming back, Caspian. Women like her never do. You do not know her." "I know enough. I know she ran at the first sign of difficulty. I know she chose her comfort over your love. I know she was exactly what I said she was, an opportunist who fled when the opportunity dried up. The worst part was that some small, poisonous part of me wondered if she was right, not the rational part. The rational part knew Ebony had fled to protect our child, had sacrificed everything to keep our baby safe from my mother's influence. But the hurt part, the abandoned part, the part that woke up every morning to an empty bed and wondered why she had not trusted me enough to stay, that part listened to my mother's poison. And eventually, that part won. I returned to the company after 6 months of searching. I told myself it was strategic, that I needed resources to find Ebony, that I needed my inheritance to fight for her properly. But that was a lie. The truth was simpler and uglier. I was a coward who chose comfort over courage. The years that followed were a slow death of everything real inside me. I became the son my mother wanted, cold, calculating, brilliant at business and empty at everything else. I took over as CEO at 30, expanded the company into new markets, doubled our revenue in 3 years, and felt nothing. Success without meaning. Wealth without purpose. Power without point. I lived in a penthouse that felt like a museum. I attended galas full of people whose names I forgot the moment they left my sight. I dated women my mother approved of, all of them beautiful, accomplished, and utterly forgettable. But every night, in the darkness of my bedroom, I thought about Ebony. Where was she? Was she safe? Had she had the baby? Was it a boy or a girl? Did the child look like me? Like her? Like both of us mixed together into something new? Did she tell the child about me? Or had she erased me from their history entirely? These questions tortured me, but not enough to act, not enough to break free from the golden cage I had returned to. 8 years. That is how long I lived this half-life. 8 years of meetings and mergers and meaningless achievements. 8 years of my mother's satisfied smiles, convinced she had saved me from disaster. 8 years of everyone telling me how successful I was, while I died a little more inside each day. Let me ask you something. Have you ever spent years running from something you did not want to face? A truth that was too painful to accept? And when you finally stopped running, what happened? Did the truth set you free, or did it break you all over again? I have been reading your comments throughout this story, and I see my people watching from Germany, from South Africa, from India, from Jamaica, from right here in the United States. This story is reaching every corner of the world, and I love seeing where you are all from. Keep those comments coming. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message about truth and second chances. Because what is coming next is the moment everything comes crashing back together. For 8 years, I convinced myself she was the villain. I built walls around that belief, because the alternative, that I had abandoned an innocent woman and my own child, was too devastating to face. Then a little boy appeared in my garden, wearing my face, carrying my bloodline, and everything I had buried came crashing back to the surface. The sun was beginning to set when I finally understood what I was seeing. This boy, Stellan, standing before me in my rose garden, was not just any child. He was mine. The way he tilted his head when thinking, the stubborn set of his jaw when challenged, the way his eyebrows drew together in concentration, all of it was familiar because I saw it in the mirror every morning. But more than that, there was something else, something that made my chest feel like it was caving in. The birthmark, just below his left ear, the same crescent moon shape, the same slightly darker shade, the same exact placement that had marked every Aldridge man for 4 generations. My grandfather used to say God marked us so the world would know we belonged to him. But looking at this boy, I knew the truth. God marked us so we could not deny our children, even when we had never known they existed. Why are you looking at me like that? Stellan shifted uncomfortably. You are being weird. Really weird. I could not help it. I was searching his face for every trace of Ebony. The shape of his eyes, the curve of his mouth, the way his expressions shifted like weather patterns across his features. She was there, in every part of him, mixed with me in a combination that should have been impossible but was standing right in front of me. I am sorry, I managed. I did not mean to. You keep staring. It is creepy. He took a step backward. I am going to leave now. Wait. The word came out desperate. My hand reached toward him without my permission, trembling visibly. He froze. His eyes dropped to my shaking hand, then back to my face. Wariness replaced confusion. Why do you want me to wait? I forced myself to breathe, to think. If I pushed too hard, he would run. And if he ran, I might never see him again. Your mother, I said carefully. Does she know you are here? Guilt flickered across his face. She is at the craft market, setting up her booth. She does not know I left. You snuck out. I did not sneak. I just did not tell her. He crossed his arms defensively. She worries too much. She thinks something bad will happen to me every time I go anywhere. It is annoying. She loves you. I know she loves me. That does not make it less annoying. Despite everything, despite the earthquake happening in my chest, I almost smiled. He sounded exactly like Ebony. That same fierce independence, that same refusal to be coddled. The craft market, I repeated. Where is it? His eyes narrowed. Why do you want to know? Because I think I need to speak to your mother. Why? This was the moment, the choice. I could lie. I could find some convenient excuse that would get me the information without revealing anything. But I was done lying. My name is Aldridge, I said. Caspian Aldridge. Something changed in his face. Not surprise. Not confusion. Something deeper. Something that looked almost like recognition. Aldridge, he repeated slowly. Like the shipping company. Yes. Like the roses. He gestured at the garden around us. The Aldridge roses. I read about them once, in a magazine at the doctor's office. That is right. He studied me with new intensity, that calculating look I had seen before, but sharper now, more focused. You are the man from the stories, he said quietly. My heart stopped. What stories? The ones my mom does not tell me. His voice dropped lower, like he was sharing a secret. The ones she gets sad about late at night when she thinks I am sleeping. The ones about the man who could have been my father if the world was different. Could have been my father. The words hit me like a physical blow. If the world was different. Ebony had never told him. She had never explained who his father was. She had never named me. She had simply carried the weight of that secret for 8 years, letting him wonder, protecting him from a truth she thought would hurt, or protecting him from me. She talks about me? My voice cracked. She does not talk to me about you. She thinks I do not know. Stellan's expression was complicated, too old for his young face. But I hear things late at night, when she is on the phone with Aunt Rosa, when she thinks I am asleep. What does she say? That she made the right choice, that some people are not safe, that she will never regret protecting me even if it meant— He stopped, looked away, even if it meant being alone. My knees nearly buckled. Ebony had spent 8 years alone, raising our son alone, working herself to exhaustion alone, and still, she did not teach him to hate me. She did not poison his heart against his father. She just carried it, all of it, alone. She never told you anything bad about me? I asked. She never told me anything about you at all. She just gets sad sometimes, and I know it is about whoever my father is, or was. He paused. She thinks the sadness is a secret. It is not. This child, this remarkable child, he saw everything, understood everything, bore the weight of his mother's unspoken grief without complaint. Just like Ebony would have raised him to do. Stellan's face hardened suddenly. The vulnerability disappeared. In its place was something fierce, protective, a small warrior ready to defend his mother against any threat. If you make my mom cry again, he stepped toward me, his small hands balling into fists. I will come back here and steal all your roses, not just the dead ones, all of them. I believed him completely. I do not want to make her cry. Then why do you want to find her? Because I think I made a terrible mistake 8 years ago, and I need to try to make it right. He considered this, weighing my words, deciding whether to trust me. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. A flyer. He pressed it into my hand. Westside Community Market. She is there until 6, booth 17. His eyes locked onto mine. Do not mess this up. Before I could respond, he turned and walked toward the garden wall. He found the same gap he had used to enter, slipped through it with practiced ease, and vanished. I stood there for a long time, staring at the gap where my son had disappeared. The crumpled flyer was clutched in my hand so tight my knuckles had turned white. Westside Community Market, booth 17, until 6. It was almost 5 o'clock. I had less than an hour. My mind was reeling, processing, trying to make sense of the earthquake that had just split my world in two. Ebony was pregnant when my mother destroyed her. She gave birth alone, no family, no support, no partner standing beside her, holding her hand, telling her everything would be okay. She raised Stellan alone, taught him to read, bandaged his scraped knees, sat up with him through fevers and nightmares and all the 1,000 small crises of childhood. She survived on craft markets and 3 jobs, and dead rose petals collected by a 7-year-old boy who just wanted to make her smile. All of this, all of it, happened while I returned to my inheritance and played CEO. Think about what Stellan just revealed. Ebony never told him who his father was. She never poisoned him against me. She just carried it, alone, for 8 years, raising our son in hiding, surviving on nothing, and still protecting the man who failed her. If someone hurt you the way I hurt Ebony, could you be that gracious? Could you protect them from your child's anger? Or would you make sure your child knew exactly who to blame? My son, had just given me the location of the woman I had failed. The woman I had doubted. The woman who had every right to disappear forever but was only 20 minutes away, selling rose petal crafts at a market I'd never heard of. The choice I made next would define the rest of my life. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, still dazed. A text message from my mother. Dinner at the estate tomorrow. We need to discuss the Singapore acquisition. I stared at the words. Singapore acquisition. Another deal. Another $1 billion. Another meeting in another conference room where I would shake hands with people who did not care about anything except profit margins. I looked at the flyer in my other hand. Westside Community Market. Booth 17. 2 paths. 2 futures. 2 versions of myself. One path led back to the golden cage, to the company and the money and the hollow existence I had been living for 8 years. Safe, comfortable, dead inside. The other path led to a woman I had abandoned, a son I had never known, a truth I had spent almost a decade running from. Everything I had sacrificed her for was meaningless. My success was built on her destruction. Every achievement, every accolade, every headline praising the brilliant Caspian Aldridge, all of it was paid for with her tears. I owed her more than I could ever repay, but I could start trying tonight. I put my phone back in my pocket. The message from my mother sat there, unanswered, unacknowledged. For the first time in 8 years, her demands would have to wait. I walked toward the garage, not to find my driver, not to have someone else handle this moment for me. I would drive myself. This moment deserved that much honesty. The keys were cold in my hand. My fingers were still trembling. But there was something else now, too. Something that felt almost like certainty. I had spent 8 years being a coward. 8 years hiding from the truth because the truth was too painful to face. 8 years choosing comfort over courage. That ended tonight. Here is the question I need you to sit with. After 8 years of silence, would you have the courage to show up? Knowing she might slam the door in your face? Knowing you might destroy whatever peace she has built? Knowing your presence might hurt more than heal? Would you go anyway, hoping for a chance you do not deserve? Or would you stay away, telling yourself it is for her benefit, when really you are just afraid of facing what you did? Tell me in the comments, because I already made my choice. I drove toward that market with no plan, no speech prepared, no idea what I would say to the woman I had let my family destroy. I only knew one thing. I was done being a coward. Whatever happened next, I would face it standing up. The Westside Community Market was nothing like the world I came from. Dirt pathways between wooden stalls, hand-painted signs advertising prices that made my heart ache, families walking together, children running between booths, vendors calling out to customers they knew by name. I was completely out of place. My Italian leather shoes sank into the dusty pavement with every step. My designer watch caught the fading sunlight, flashing signals I did not want to send. My tailored jacket looked absurd among the hand-knit sweaters and vintage flannel shirts surrounding me. People noticed. Of course they noticed. A few vendors eyed me with suspicion. A woman pulled her child closer as I passed. I was the intruder here, the outsider who did not belong. But I kept walking. The market was larger than I expected. Row after row of booths stretched toward the setting sun. Pottery with glazed finishes caught the light. Candles in mason jars filled the air with lavender and cedar. Woven baskets hung from wooden poles. Paintings leaned against folding tables. So much beauty. So much creation, so much life happening in a place I would have driven past 1,000 times without noticing. My heart hammered against my ribs as I searched. Booth after booth, face after face, none of them hers. Booth 12, 13, 14. My breath grew shorter. 15, 16, and then I saw it. Booth 17, rose petal art. The display stopped me in my tracks. Pressed flower frames arranged in careful rows. Petal jewelry on velvet stands. Delicate paper embedded with fragments of roses, each piece catching the light differently. Beauty made from cast-off things. Beauty made from what others throw away, just like Ebony herself. I recognized her work immediately. The precision, the attention to detail, the way she found value in things the world had discarded. This was everything she was, translated into art. A small sign hung at the front of the booth, hand-lettered on recycled cardboard. Rose Revival Creations. Every piece tells a story. Every piece tells a story. I knew the story. I had lived it. I had destroyed it. And then I saw her. She was helping a customer at the side of the booth, an older woman holding up a pressed flower frame, asking questions. Ebony leaned in, explaining something about the process, her hands moving as she spoke. She was older. 8 years will do that. Lines around her eyes that were not there before, a weariness in her shoulders. Hair pulled back in a practical ponytail instead of the loose waves I remembered. Still the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. She laughed at something the customer said. That laugh, the same one that cut through the noise of a homeless shelter a decade ago. The same one that made me forget every expectation my family had placed on my shoulders. I could not breathe. The customer walked away with her purchase, and Ebony turned to straighten a display. That was when she looked up. Our eyes met across the dusty pathway. Time stopped. The market noise faded. The people walking between us became shadows. Everything narrowed to this single moment. Her face cycled through emotions faster than I could track. Shock first, her body going rigid. Then fear, her hand gripping the edge of her table. Then anger, her jaw tightening. Then pain, something breaking behind her eyes. And then something else. Something I could not name. Something that flickered and disappeared before I could understand it. She did not move. Neither did I. The silence between us stretched across 8 years of absence, 8 years of questions unanswered, 8 years of a wound that never healed. I took a step forward. She flinched. I stopped. "Mom!" The voice came from behind the booth, small feet running on packed earth. Stellan burst around the corner, breathless and excited. "Mom, I found the—" He saw me. His face fell instantly. Oh no. Ebony's arms shot out, wrapping around her son, pulling him behind her body. Her stance shifted. Protective, fierce. A mother ready to defend her child against any threat. Against me. "What are you doing here, Caspian?" Her voice was cold, controlled, nothing like the warmth I remembered. "I met our son today." The words came out steadier than I felt. "In my garden, stealing rose petals. He is not your son." Each word landed like a blade. "You made that choice 8 years ago." Stellan shifted behind her, his face appearing briefly around her hip. He looked guilty, scared, like a child who had accidentally started something he could not stop. "I was wrong." My voice cracked. "I was so wrong, Ebony." "You think I was wrong fixes anything?" She stepped forward, her body still shielding Stellan. "You think 3 words erase 8 years?" "No." I shook my head. "I do not think anything fixes it, but I am here anyway, because staying away would just be another kind of cowardice." Cowardice. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Only bitterness. Only pain. "You want to talk about cowardice? You left me. You believed your mother's lies. You went back to your inheritance while I was hiding in basements and shelters, terrified someone would find me. I know. You do not know. You cannot possibly know what these 8 years have been. Then tell me. I am listening. I am finally listening. Around us, the market was beginning to close. Vendors packing up their wares. Families heading toward the parking area. The sun dipping below the horizon, but neither of us moved. I could see her weighing her options. She could run again, pack up Stellan and disappear into the night. She had done it before. She knew how to vanish. She could call security, make a scene. Have me removed from the market in front of everyone. Let the world see Caspian Aldridge humiliated. She could tell Stellan the truth right now. Turn to him and say, "This is the man who abandoned us. This is your father who chose money over family." Turn my son against me before I ever had a chance. Everything hung on this moment. Mom? Stellan's voice was small, uncertain. Is this the man from the stories? Ebony closed her eyes. I saw her chest rise and fall with a deep breath. Yes, she said quietly. This is him. Is he my dad? The question hung in the air between all three of us. A question 8 years in the making. Ebony did not answer. She just looked at me, waiting, daring me to respond. The market was closing down around us. Vendors folded tables and loaded trucks. Strings of lights flickered off one section at a time. The crowd had thinned to almost nothing. Ebony looked down at Stellan, still pressed against her side. Go to Maria's booth, she said. Her voice was gentle but firm. Stay with her. I will come get you. But Mom, Stellan. She crouched down to his level, cupping his face in her hands. I need you to trust me right now. Can you do that? He looked at me, then back at her. The conflict on his young face was painful to watch. He is not going to hurt you. No one is going to hurt me. I just need to have a conversation, an adult conversation. About me? About a lot of things. She kissed his forehead. Go. I will be there in 20 minutes. Stellan hesitated for another moment. Then he nodded slowly, slipped out from behind her, and walked toward a booth 3 rows over. He glanced back twice before disappearing around a corner. Ebony straightened. Her protective stance softened slightly, but her eyes remained guarded. There is a bench behind the food trucks, she said. Away from ears. We can talk there. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. She began walking without waiting for me to follow. You have 10 minutes, then I am taking my son, and you will never see either of us again. The bench sat in shadows behind the food trucks. Empty. Private. Exactly what this conversation needed. Ebony sat at one end. I sat at the other. A foot of space between us that felt like miles. Talk, she said. I doubted you. The words came out raw, unpolished. For one moment, I let my mother's poison make me question you, and that moment cost us everything. She stared straight ahead, not looking at me. I saw the doubt in your eyes, Caspian. That was not a moment, that was a choice. I know, and I have spent 8 years paying for it. Now she turned, and the fury in her eyes made me flinch. You have spent 8 years paying for it. Her laugh was bitter, broken, a sound I had never heard from her before. Do you know what it was like for me? Tell me. I was pregnant and alone when your mother's lies went public. I watched strangers on the internet call me a gold digger, a whore, a con artist. People I'd never met, saying things about me that made me afraid to leave my apartment. Ebony, I am not finished. Her voice shook with rage. I gave birth in a hospital I could not afford, alone, holding my own hand because no one else was there to hold it. She stood up suddenly, started pacing. Her hands trembled at her sides. I spent Stellan's first year in a room above my father's garage. Do you remember what I told you about my father? He could barely function, but I had nowhere else to go, so I slept on a mattress on the floor, worked 3 jobs, and was afraid to use my real name because your family might find me. I did not know. Of course you did not know. You were not there. She stopped pacing, turned to face me. I watched my son grow up without a father. Every time he asked why other kids had daddies and he did not, I had to make up some story, some lie, because the truth that his father doubted his own mother was too cruel to tell a child. Tears were streaming down her face now. She did not bother to wipe them. That is what 8 years cost me. Not penthouse apartments and billion-dollar companies, not board meetings and designer suits, sleepless nights, empty refrigerators, terror every time someone knocked on the door. I looked for you. My voice came out broken. For 6 months I searched. 6 months. She laughed again. That terrible, bitter laugh. You looked for 6 months. I have been hiding for 8 years. 6 months was nothing. 6 months was easy to give up. I did not give up. The words hurt to say because part of me knew they were a lie. I broke. I was broken, Ebony. I could not. We do not all have the luxury of breaking. Her voice cut through my excuse like a knife. Some of us have children to feed. Some of us have rent to pay. Some of us cannot afford to fall apart because there is no one to catch us. If you were Ebony right now, what would you do? This is the man you loved. The man whose doubt drove you away. The man who went back to his golden life while you scraped by in the shadows. He is standing in front of you saying, I was wrong. Is that enough? Would you hear him out? Or would you tell him to leave and never come back? And if you were me, standing there with your heart exposed, facing the consequences of your failure, what would you say next? She had every right to walk away. Every right to never hear another word from me. Every right to disappear again and take Stellan somewhere I would never find them. I saw her weighing it, calculating, deciding. Then something in her face shifted, not forgiveness, not even close, but something that might, just might, become an open door.